What's up YouTube, Rhen here with another 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross video. Today we're looking at the PvP meta right now, what's going on. We've got some shakeups this week, so with that, let's get into it. What's up guys, hope everybody's having a great week. We've got lots of fun and exciting things going on in 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross right now. We've got new banners, we've got Blue Merlin. Okay, maybe that's not super exciting, but the meta definitely has been shaken up this week. We're continuing to see the evolution of the Pierce comps that we saw rising last week, and now we're seeing the balancer of the force against the Pierce comp, aka Green Valenti. So with that, let's jump into the unit representations for this week. Alright, so let's jump into the units. As you guys recall last week, we had seen the continued evolution of the Pierce comp and the aggro comp. We're seeing a lot more pressure teams last week. We saw a big drop in the Gother usage, and people instead were subbing in units that were more aggressive, people that weren't worrying about disabling or debuffing. They were just going to hit people in the face, and whoever hits in the face hardest has been winning. So that's the meta that we had coming into this week, but things changed due to rank number 5 on this list, Green Valenti, the anti-Pierce green, some kind of like exploration, research, whatever. She's got weird arms, and she messes up Pierce teams, so that's pretty much what she does. So we haven't seen a big change in Escanor. He's still the most prevalent unit in the meta right now. As you recall, Gother had been declining steadily over the last couple weeks. We continue to see him holding about level this week. Did see a drop in Blue King. We saw a lot of Pierce comps using King last week. We saw a lot of Escanor, Demon Meliodas, and Blue King. We also saw Gother used in that comp, although a little bit less. And we saw a lot of Red Grimoire subs. We're still seeing quite a few Red Grimoire subs, although now we're seeing a little bit more tank stall type subs with these Valenti teams, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So overall, we do have a drop in King this week. Valenti has penetrated about 26% of the matches. Now, I'll be honest, I feel that over the course of this week, and I haven't gone back and charted this out when I can, I feel like over the course of the week we've been seeing a lot more Valenti teams show up. So we're showing her 26% on average for the week, but I'll be honest, at the end of the week I'd say she's probably been closer to 30 or 35%. So that on average, you know, we didn't see as much from the beginning of the week, seeing a lot more of her at the end of the week. It'll be interesting to see if that trend continues next week or if things kind of settle down a little bit. We're kind of looking for that balancing point in the meta where, you know, there's going to be some people playing the Valenti to counter the Pierce comp. As the Pierce comp declines in popularity, the Valenti will become less valuable, so she'll decline, and then we'll kind of reach some kind of equilibrium between Pierce comps, Valenti comps, and other comps, which is right now primarily either Control or Mono Red or Kingbrum. We'll talk about that here in a second when we get to the comps. Right, so here's a fun little chart I put together for you guys this week. If you're a little bit nerdy like I am, then this is kind of cool. You can just kind of track how these units have been evolving over time in terms of how much they're being played in the meta. So the biggest change I see when I look at this is this line that starts all the way at the top, this red line that's been coming down, 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 and that, as I mentioned earlier, is the Gother representation. So, you know, at the beginning of May, which is only about a month ago, we were seeing Gother in over 90% of teams. I mean, that's pretty much every match you're going to see a Gother. Now, look where he is today. He is less than 50%. What did we say? He was like 41%. So he's barely even in the 40% range. And I think that's just a testament to the types of archetypes that we're seeing evolve. You know, the meta has really been evolving in an interesting way over the past couple weeks. At the beginning of May, we really had a lot less sort of viable options. The meta was kind of stagnant between anti-Escanor teams and hadn't quite seen a whole lot of what I call the Escabro teams yet, but they were starting to kind of be developing at that point in time. And so over the course of the last 4 weeks, we really have seen a shift away from those mono red towards the Escabro archetype. And then once Blue Demon Meliodas was released, you can see him starting here on May week 4. He jumped up right away. He was in the 30% range. That was really the biggest shift in the past couple of weeks that we've seen in the meta. And then we had another big shift this week with Green Valenti. So you can see Hauser has been on a bit of a roller coaster. He started, you can see a slow and steady increase, and then he has just dropped like a rock. He's probably lost half of his representation just in the last week, with the release of Green Valenti. So it's been interesting to see, over time, as these different characters get released, as different units come into the meta, how things start to shift. And it's interesting to see, when we have different units released in quick succession like we have the past couple of weeks, it's almost like the meta hasn't really had time to stabilize before we see the next sort of upheaval. All right, so with that, let's get into the comps. So here's what we have for the comps for this week. So one thing I noticed right away when I looked at these is that mono red archetype did not even make the top 10. It turned out to be rank 11 this week, and it was even less than it was just less than the rank 10. So it was like 2.9 or something % like that. But all that is to say, the blue team and Meliodas released last week has pretty much ended the mono red prevalence in the meta that we've been seeing for the past 3 to 4 weeks. One thing that I think is really interesting and I think is kind of cool is when you look at this breakdown and you compare it to the ones I've been showing for the past 4 to 6 weeks, there's a lot lower percentage of these teams being captured by, say, the top 3 ranked teams. In other words, there's a lot more variety in terms of what teams are being played. Now, the archetypes, there's still really not that many archetypes, but what I think is cool is that people are trying out more combinations than they used to. Part of that may be, like I mentioned earlier, we're still in sort of an upheaval phase where the units are being released, and it hasn't quite settled down yet. But I think part of it is also that now we're seeing sort of the evolution of this rock, paper, scissors. We've got the Pierce, we've got the Valenti, we've got the Control, we've got the Kingbrim. We've all these different combinations that are sort of, synergizing and playing off of each other. And we're really starting to see what I would say is moving towards more of a balanced meta. In the past month or so, typically one team archetype has been dominating, whether it's been the mono red Hauser Burr team, whether it's been the Escabro team, whether it's been the Pierce team. And now, just over the past couple of weeks, we're starting to really see things come back into balance. So, it's kind of interesting to me that when I click the play button, or whatever the button says when you click to play PvP matches, when I click that button, I feel like I now have less of an idea what I'm going to see when I click that today than I did a month ago, which is kind of cool because it means, in my opinion, there's more sort of archetypes that are viable, but it also makes it a little bit tougher to craft sort of an anti-meta team because when you say, what is the meta, there isn't really one clearly dominating archetype or team right now. So let's just run through these again. Rank number 1 is sort of this pressure team that we've seen with the Escanor Demon Meliodas. It's typically relying on the Pierce comp for Demon Meliodas. People have kind of settled on running Blue King for that. A lot of times we'll see Red Cream or in the sub on that one. Rank number 2 is still Escabro team. I was surprised to see that. Again, we probably have seen a little bit less of that in the second half of the week, so I suspect we'll see perhaps a drop in team number 2 when we look to the next week, although that is actually up a little bit from the week before, from last week. So you never really know what's going to happen, and if there's a new banner that comes out, that could shift things up again. Team number 3, obviously this is a new team with Valenti. Look at team number 3, team number 5, team number 8. These are all Valenti teams. Some of them are more miserable to play against than others. I think, in my opinion, the most miserable is something like number 3, running probably a green guile in the sub. Even more miserable to play against, perhaps, than that team would be subbing out the Gother for a green Lilia. I played against that team, and I pretty much had to take a nap because when I woke up, they were at half health, and I'm pretty sure there had been like 12 ults used, nobody had died, and it kind of just made me wonder why somebody would want to play a team like that. But that's okay. I'm sure they're having fun. I hope they're having fun, and so it is what it is. Number 6, Kingbrim is down. That's pretty interesting. I've heard a lot of people say that Kingbrim is a great counter for Valenti. I'm not really sure if I completely agree with that. I think it works okay. I think the more Valenti we have, the less Pierce comps we have. I think Kingbrim will sort of see maybe a little bit of a resurgence. Not quite seeing that in the numbers this week. I don't think Kingbrim, in my opinion, is not particularly really good against Valenti, but what I think will happen is Valenti will suppress some of the teams that Kingbrim is weaker against, and so people may start playing a little bit more Kingbrim, not because it's necessarily good against those teams, but because the teams that it's weak against are now going to be suppressed by Valenti. So overall, I'd say Valenti has definitely had an impact on the meta, definitely had an impact on what people are playing. I don't know if Blue Lilia is coming. She's not, as they say, 100% confirmed for next week. Every global player must pull. No, we don't really know, when she's coming, but it'll be interesting to see when she does come. Will she be able to overcome the Valenti sort of effect and shift things back in favor of the Pierce comps? Or will she be just sort of a balancing force at that point in time to make the Pierce comps not really get crushed, but to make them sort of remain viable over time? So with that, let's look at our color circle to wrap things up. So our color circle this week is pretty interesting. We do see a bump in green at the expense pretty much equally of blue and red. Again, the red decrease, some of that is the decline of some of the housers that we looked at in the previous graphic. A lot of the 12% increase on green is from the Valenti. In fact, she has more of a 12% play rate right now, so you can tell by that there's been a little bit of a decrease in some of the other green units. But all that is to say, we're still pretty balanced. It's interesting, a couple weeks ago we were looking at a 55% red on the circle. With the release of Blue Demon Meliodas, that brought things back into check to about even 1/3 each. And with the release of Valenti, she's sort of pushed things in the direction of the green. So it'll be interesting to see, like I said, I don't know if Blue Lilia is next or Green Deanne or who's next, but it will be interesting to see if we see some of the red come back. Right now we're sort of seeing the Escanor effect, but from Blue Demon Meliodas, which is to say he is to some extent still suppressing the red, and to the extent that Valenti starts suppressing the Blue Demon Meliodas teams, it's possible we could see a little bit of a resurgence in red to counter this green. But all that is to say, it really will depend on what happens this week in terms of if there's banners, if there's releases, if there's changes. Don't really know what's coming yet, so at this point it's kind of a wait and see. Alright, so with that wraps up where we are this week. Hopefully this information is helpful for you guys. I do release this kind of information every week. If this is helpful to you guys and you'd like to see it in the future, there's some features on YouTube that will let you know when I release new videos. There's like a bell, there's some kind of like subscribe thingy. I'm not a YouTube expert, but you guys can probably figure out what those do. So with that, hopefully you guys are having a good week in PvP and grinding out those anvils. And with that, I'll leave it to you guys and stay tuned for more cool stuff. See ya!